Hey everyone, and welcome. Ready for a deep dive that might just change how you think about, well, thinking.
I think we're ready. This is one of those topics that really makes you step back and reconsider some assumptions.
Absolutely. So today we're diving into the surprising connection between genius, creativity, and music. We're drawing inspiration from a fascinating Psychology Today article, Einstein on Creative Thinking.
By Michelle and Robert Root Bernstein. Great piece.
Definitely. It really got us thinking about how breakthroughs actually happen. And you know who's at the heart of this deep dive?
Let me guess, it's not Mozart this time, is it?
You got it. It's the one and only Albert Einstein. Get this. The article makes a compelling case that Einstein's groundbreaking theories were, in part, thanks to his love for music.
It's more than just a love for music, though. It really gets at how Einstein viewed the relationship between science and art.
So often we're told they're opposites. Left brain, right brain, that kind of thing.
Right. But Einstein didn't see it that way at all. He saw science and art not as opposites, but as two sides of the same coin.
Meaning?
They were both ways of trying to grasp the universe, just through different languages.
So instead of science versus art, he's saying they're both aiming at the same truth, but expressing it in different ways.
Exactly. Science might use logic and equations, but art, he felt, that was about intuition and emotion.
That's a pretty profound distinction. But did that actually influence how Einstein did science?
You bet it did. Einstein was very open about how important intuition was to his work.
Intuition. We're talking about the theory of relativity here.
I know, right? But he famously said, imagination is more important than knowledge.
Hold on. Did Einstein, the father of Institut, just prioritize imagination over cold, hard facts?
It seems wild, right? But for Einstein, that spark, that aha moment, that's where it all started.
So it wasn't all equations on chalkboards?
Not at first. Einstein said he relied on images, feelings, even what he called musical architectures, way more than logic at the start.
Musical architectures.
Yeah.
Now that's an image. He's picturing symphonies while working on, like, the fabric of space-time.
It's even more mind-blowing than that. But we'll get into those details right after this quick break.
Okay, so we're picturing Einstein's mind like some kind of grand symphony, right? But how did he go from these musical architectures to, actual scientific breakthroughs?
That's the really fascinating part. Einstein described these breakthroughs as these non-verbal eureka moments. Like, he couldn't even explain them in words at first.
So he'd have this flash of insight, this gut feeling almost, and then he'd try to make sense of it logically.
Exactly. The intuitive leap came first. Then came the struggle of translating that into equations, into something provable.
Wow. And I'm guessing this whole process, it kind of flies in the face of how we usually teach science.
Sure. I mean, we drill logic and formulas, but this whole intuitive side, that gets left behind sometimes.
Einstein himself said it right. I very rarely think in words at all.
Yeah.
A thought comes, and I may try to express it in words afterwards.
Exactly. And this wasn't just some quirk of Einstein. It speaks to a deeper connection between art and science. Like when he described physicist Niels Bohr's model of the atom.
What did he say about it?
He called it, and I quote, the highest form of musicality in the realm of thought, music and understanding the universe intertwined.
Okay, that gives me chills. But we haven't even gotten to Einstein the musician yet.
Right, because this wasn't just some casual hobby for him. Remember that quote we mentioned earlier about how much joy he got from music?
I do, but honestly, it's so good it's worth repeating.
He said, if I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician. I often think in music. I live my daydreams in music. I see my life in terms of music. I get most joy in life out of music.
That's not just loving music. That's like music is the air he breathes.
Exactly. And some scholars believe it was more than just a personal passion. It actually might have been crucial to his scientific process.
You're saying his violin wasn't just a way to unwind after a long day of relativity. It was like another tool for understanding the universe.
Precisely. Think about music. The structures, the rhythms, the harmonies. It's possible those are the metaphors, the framework that let his mind unlock those complex scientific ideas.
So instead of starting with equations, he was hearing them as these grand musical metaphors. That's wild.
And it highlights how hard it is to talk about things we don't have the language for yet. It's like trying to describe a color you've never seen before. Music, maybe that was the language Einstein needed before he had the equations.
Mind officially blown. But how does music help you grapple with something as complex as, well, space and time?
Well, music doesn't follow the same rules as words, right? A single note can be so many emotions at once. Melodies, they create that feeling of moving through time. In fact, scholar Robert Mueller, he suggests music gave Einstein this unique perceptual fabric of space and time.
A perceptual fabric. Okay, now we're getting really abstract here. Perceptual fabric. Okay, gotta admit, you've totally lost me. It sounds fascinating, but what does that even mean?
All right, let's try this. Imagine trying to describe, say, what it feels like to be in love.
Complicated. Good complicated, though.
Right. Lots of emotions, experiences, all tangled up together. You can use metaphors, poems even, but to really capture it in words. Tough, right?
For sure. It's more of a feeling than the sentence, you know.
Exactly. And Mueller's arguing that for Einstein, music was like finding the language for a feeling that didn't have words yet. Music gave him that framework, that way to grab hold of space and time, almost like, I don't know, a sculptor with sound.
So he could feel those dimensions through music before he could do the math on them.
That's the idea. It let him work with those concepts before the equations existed almost.
Man, music is a language for the stuff we don't even fully grasp. That's incredible.
And maybe, just maybe, because Einstein was using that musical intuition, he saw the universe differently than someone stuck in purely logical thinking.
It really makes you wonder how much we limit ourselves, assuming brilliance has to look a certain way.
Couldn't agree more. We get these ideas that skills, passions, they belong in their own boxes. But Einstein, he was blending it all. And who knows what we might discover if we did the same.
Right. Like we've each got this whole orchestra inside us, but we only let ourselves play a couple instruments.
And you don't need to be some virtuoso to experiment. Just explore those what-ifs, those things you've been curious about.
So if music was Einstein's key to unlocking the universe, what could yours be? What's that thing you've been putting off exploring? That's something to think about. This has been a wild ride, everyone. Thanks for joining us as we take a deep dive into the mind of a genius. Until next time, stay curious. And remember, sometimes the most groundbreaking discoveries, they don't happen in the lab, but in those quiet spaces where we let our imaginations run wild.